Hi guys, welcome to another video and to the Porsche 911, but not just any 911. This of course is the Porsche 911 Targa, but not just any Targa. This is the Porsche 911 Targa 4S Heritage Design Edition, a car built by Porsche, one of only 992 examples worldwide to commemorate the Porsches of the 1950s, 60s and 70s. This car is absolutely filled with beautiful heritage design touches inside and out, including this resplendent cherry red paint. There are actually 4 other heritage colours available, including crayon, GT silver, guards red and indeed black. But let's have a quick walk around the car and I can explain why this is such a special model. As well as coming with this beautiful exclusive Porsche cherry red key in a kind of a leather heritage design edition pouch, there was a very good reason for buying any Porsche 911 Targa over the standard coupe model, because it isn't always a default choice, and that is this reason in particular. This beautiful roof assembly which lowers automatically, even just from the key or of course inside the car. It is just such a beautiful thing in operation, and it creates such drama opening the roof, and more so than the average obviously standard coupe. That is just so slick, and I could never get tired of just opening and closing the roof on a Porsche 911 Targa. As I said at the very start, this car is full of beautiful heritage detailing, and straight away one of the most notable pieces of this car is of course the badging, the gold Porsche badging, as we can see here, 911 Targa 4S, and also on that classic rollover hoop. This really actually makes the car stand out from normal Porsche 911 Targas, ones that aren't, for example, cherry red or that exclusive colour, for example, black or indeed crayon or any of the other colours. The gold badging really points the car out. Also, this badge actually here on the fins of the engine cover is also very important, because it actually harks back to the badge placed on the Porsche 356 back in the day when it hit 100,000 miles as a milestone. So a lovely nod to the past there. The 911 4S is of course 4-wheel drive and fitted with a bi-turbo engine producing 450 brake horsepower, which takes this car from 0 to 60 in about 3.6 seconds. The Heritage Edition model is also fitted with a number of kind of performance features that really enhance the experience of driving this car. And Porsche cars are all about the driving experience. For example, these Porsche sports exhausts. And on this particular model, you will note that they are actually black on the inside, which is a lovely kind of touch, which really highlights, why this car is different to the other models in the range. The car is also fitted with numerous other factors that really enhance the performance of the car, for example, Sport Chrono, and a series of things that we'll talk about later on. The 911 Targa 4S Heritage Edition is also fitted with these really cool Porsche exclusive Carrera design wheels, which actually hark back to the Fuchs alloys of the Porsche 911s of old. The car also comes with this wonderful decal set, again harking back to the glory kind of racing days of Porsche, stretching way back to the 356 model. The one at the side here, this kind of large big white circle, can actually be customised with any number from 0 to 99, whatever one is most personal to, of course, the owner. The spears on the front in terms of these decals here look amazing with this cherry red paintwork, and actually also hark back to the kind of war paint of Porsche racing models of old. The brakes are also of note on the 4S Heritage Edition because they are actually carbon ceramic brakes. The alloys are 20-inch at the front and 21-inch at the rear, which is common to the other 911 models of the range. Inside this car, well, obviously straight away from the visual you can tell why this is such a special 911, but maybe before we come to that we'll just talk about the new 992 generation of the 911 and what it's like inside. Obviously there are some classic Porsche styling cues, but numerous kind of futuristic details that really bring this car into the 21st century and make it probably one of the best cars in its class. First of all, we have the inherent driving position of any 911. It just feels so right. The cabin is so cocooning. You sit in the most perfect driving position, steering wheel straight in front of you, and of course that iconic analog rev counter right in the middle. Porsche enthusiasts will of course be familiar with the fact that in the driving display here there are usually 5 dials in the Porsche 911, and we also have that replicated in the 992 gen. So even though there are 2 TFT screens which flank either side of the analog rev counter, these can be customized as I have now to show 5 individual dials. Again, a lovely touch to kind of maintains that continuity of tradition in the Porsche 911. Then we have this wonderful center screen. The graphics are so unbelievably crisp. I haven't once, using my fingers obviously it being a touch screen, hit the wrong button by mistake. It's just pinpoint accuracy, extremely responsive and just pleasurable to use. But pleasingly, not all of the functions need to be controlled via the screen here. So for example, if you come to your favorite piece of B-road, you can just hit this button here and put the sports exhausts on, and immediately hit this button here and change the suspension settings from normal to sport. On the steering wheel here, we also have all of the driving modes, from wet mode, which is very handy, obviously, in the wet, but also we have sport mode, sport plus, and indeed normal. But it's more the ease of use. It can be customized just by pressing and turning this rotary controller right here. Then we have the center console. Those familiar with the 991 and previous generations of the Porsche 911 would have been greeted with a huge array of buttons the whole way down here. These have all been effectively replaced either by these beautiful knurled controls here, controls accessed via the central touchscreen, and just a minimum amount of buttons actually on the center console. So a very clean, futuristic design. Even the buttons and the controls themselves, they're almost like an iPhone in that they have haptic feedback, and obviously as soon as you press them, something happens, but you don't feel that press of a traditional button. It just adds to the whole futuristic ambience and interior of this car. So what makes the Porsche 4S Targa Heritage Edition so much more special? Well, first of all, obviously we have this wonderful two-tone heritage interior, which can actually be spec'd on other Porsche models, but in this particular car there are just so many beautiful little finishing touches. The first thing you notice, and just to complement the gold badging on the outside, we have this 992 badge on the dash here, which actually has the serial number of the car, and because the car is numbered 0 or 1 to 992, we have kind of a plaque commemorating, what model this particular is. This particular example happens to be model 121 of 992. So a lovely reminder that you are in fact in a very special 4S Targa Heritage Edition design. Then we have the interior, which is just oozing in quality. One of the most noticeable and unusual features of the car, as well as the kind of Bordeaux and kind of cream two-tone leather, is the corduroy finish of these seats, which immediately takes the car back to the 1950s and of course the 1960s. This finish is of course repeated in the door cards and in several places around the car. Almost every surface in the car is coated in leather, which is kind of a difference from some of the normal models in the range. Although Porsche, surprisingly for kind of a mainstream or kind of manufacturer, doesn't necessarily specialize in complete coach building like something like Rolls-Royce would, you can really customize a huge amount in the 911 in terms of the surfaces you want covered in leather, even to the interior of the vents here, and things like the column casing here, which is obviously stitched. In the Targa Heritage Edition, this is of course standard, and the stitching along the top here. There's also a wonderful Alcantara headlining, but in a nod to the past, this is not just a normal Alcantara headlining, it is in fact perforated, which just really adds to that kind of 1950s vibe where headlining of cars, vintage cars back then, was often perforated. Obviously we have the wonderful embossing on the head restraints of the Porsche badge, and while we're on Porsche badges, the Porsche badge on the front of the car and also on the steering wheel is actually not just a normal modern Porsche badge, it's actually a slightly different design, which is a heritage Porsche badge. Again, another nod to why this car is different from the standard 911 Targa and also an incredibly special model. The car is fitted also with the Bose sound system, which is incredible sound quality and can even be upgraded to the even better Burmeister system if you like to take that box on the option list. But a wonderful interior, feels incredibly special, not only in colour scheme but in quality of materials and the general kind of ambience of the car inside. It feels like a really, really cool retro take on models and obviously harks back to the 50s and the 60s. And it's actually wonderful in Targa spec as well to have that blaster screen at the back, open top when you want it, and at the touch of a button, literally I think something like 19 seconds, the roof will close and obviously open again. But the car must actually be stationary to be able to do that. So really, really unique experience. So the next thing we'll talk about is the most important thing, which is what this car is actually like to drive. And that is incredibly exciting. So what is the new Porsche 911 Targa 4S Heritage Design Edition like to drive? Well, as you can probably tell by the smile on my face and the sound of this incredible engine, this car is incredibly exciting to drive, even on a wet and kind of dreary day like today. Firstly, this Porsche 911 is actually in wet mode at the moment because it is of course a wet and rainy day. And what this does is it alters the characteristics of the car in terms of the drive for maximum stability and of course comfort in the wet. And it's actually one of 5 driving modes, from normal, sport, sport plus, individual and of course wet. Straight off the line, this car puts down its power so well. 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, courtesy of that 450 brake horsepower. bi-turbo flat six engine. I would challenge anybody even to hop into a base 911 and not be completely blown away by the power, but with 450 horsepower this car is certainly not lacking and is incredibly exciting to drive. The driver display on the right hand side of the rev counter is also very interesting. It displays a lot of different kind of things that are very interesting and useful for the drive, aside from sat nav, which is obviously replicating the beautiful display on the central touchscreen, but also things like the front to rear power distribution. There's even a G-force meter here, and obviously that comes with the Sport Chrono display here to match the Sport Chrono lap timer at the very top of the dashboard. But really, it's just all about that absolutely wonderful, deep, sonorous flat six sound, which really enhances the driving experience and is hugely critical to the drive, the emotive experience of it, and just the overall aura of the 911. But to drive a 911 is just so focused. The steering, there's just so much feel in it, and it's actually remarkable given this is electronic steering as opposed to the older hydraulic system. How they've engineered in that level of feel is just incredible, and it's one of the key things I enjoy about driving 911 cars. That, the sound, and of course the power. That engine is just so nice. The car's suspension, given of course the car's amazing handling, incredibly also absorbs bumps very, very well. That's always the balance with a sports car. Excellent kind of pinpoint handling, but also able to absorb bumps and keep a refined ride. Just to touch on this car's other driving modes, in particular we have Sport Mode. This is obviously one of the 5. And Sport Mode increases the engine noise by obviously activating the exhaust valves, and also alters the car's driving dynamics. Sport Plus then will also alter the suspension settings from normal to sport. A massive factor in the driving experience of this car is of course that wonderful flat six metallic sonorous deep sounding engine. You end up kind of flapping through the paddles here just to hear the various notes of the engine, as well as the instant shifts courtesy of that 8-speed PDK transmission. It's just so immersive and entertaining and really emotive to drive, and that noise never gets old. So the Porsche 911 Targa 4S Heritage Design Edition, how can we sum up this car? Well, firstly, it is obviously a car very much for the collector. It's incredibly special to have a car given only 992 examples were made worldwide. Porsche doesn't do these models very often, so to get one really is a treat, and certainly it's a privilege for me to actually test it, so great thanks to Porsche Great Britain PR. I also think as well this car, as well as having all those wonderful attributes of the Porsche 911, there's the incredible high quality, the thrilling, exciting drive. It's just a drive that can really be enjoyed and is incredibly emotive and immersive in the experience. To have all of that combined with just the detailing in the car. I'm a real details person. I really appreciate fine detailing in a car, and this car, particularly because it's the heritage design spec, is absolutely full of beautiful little details that really can be admired over your whole period of ownership, both inside and out. I particularly love the decals on the car. The gold badging really points the car out, and then of course we have that heritage interior. I think probably of this particular edition model, I think of the 5 colours, the cherry red is the most, it pops the most, and I think particularly with the cream interior, with the Bordeaux red, is just such a wonderful contrast. And having driven this car around, you know, London for the past few days and even across to Bath and various different places, it never fails to grab those admiring glances of anybody. And that's incredibly nice. And a big part of what this Heritage 911 edition is about, it is to hark back to the Porsche 356 back of the 1950s and the 1960s. And this car does it incredibly well. It's just a beautifully executed, detailed and finished product typical of the Porsche range. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I've really enjoyed this car. I think it's a wonderful piece of art actually, as well as being a wonderful piece of automotive history. And that's what this is, being such a rare model. And of course, a Porsche 911, one of my all-time favorite cars. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I shall catch you on the next one.